As one of the 11 people with the greatest longevity in the Green Hills AEA Education Agency, I and the 10 others were asked, what does the Green Hills AEA mean to you? I apparently drew the short straw. So as you watch this video montage of our AEA, you get to listen to my answer to that profound question. When asked, what does the Green Hills AEA mean to me? Well, without hesitation, my first response would be speeding tickets. Now, many of you may or may not know that the Green Hills AEA in square miles is larger than the states of Delaware, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Hawaii, and my home state of New Jersey. As a one-time young and still easily distracted driver, who, when I first started, was the only PT in the then Los Hills Area Education Agency, that was a whole lot of territory to cover and a whole lot of straight open roads. Now, people say over the last 50 years, one of the greatest inventions is the computer. And as someone who remembers typing out reports on 3-part paper with one copy going to the LEA file, one to the AEA file, and one to the family, computers with spell checks are definitely a godsend. Others say the greatest invention over the last 50 years is the cell phone. And again, as somebody who grew up sharing a party line, our ability to communicate and share information almost spontaneously from almost anywhere through text, message, or voice, that too is nice. But the greatest invention in the last 50 years for somebody whose goal is to take every one of his cars to the moon, which is between 234,000 and 237,000 miles away on any given day, for somebody whose cars have often been held together by duct tape and baling wire, and of course for somebody who has collected upwards of 30 speeding tickets, the greatest invention in the last 50 years is cruise control. When I think further about what the AEA has meant to me, I think about adventure. I've been lucky enough to visit 48 states and 22 countries, but never in those travels have I ever visited any place as uniquely Iowan as Pisgah, Iowa, home of the old home Filler Up and Keep on Truckin' Cafe, a place made famous as the title of a song performed by Chip Davis and the W.C. McCall Band. Nestled in the Los Hills, Pisgah, a small town of 249 residents in the West Harrison School District, used to have its own elementary school. One snowy February day while visiting a student and teacher, there was a knock on the classroom door. One of the town's road crew was at the door and asked if I owned the little car that was parked across the street in front of the school. I said I did, and he said, I think I hit your car with the city snowplow. Well, we went and checked it out. He definitely hit my car, but maybe hit was a little understated, since he'd taken off the driver's side, front, and rear doors. Looking at my car, I'm thinking, well, my car now has air conditioning. Then I'm thinking air conditioning seemed a little ostentatious on a day when the wind chill factor was minus 20 degrees. The mayor of Pisgah called and said that they would pay to get my car repaired, which they did. With the help of the road crew worker, we put down the back seats and got the doors stuffed into the back of my car. As I drove the 40 miles down I-29 back to Council Bluffs with the wind blowing in my hair and everywhere else for that matter, it's probably the closest I ever came to owning a convertible. Speaking of adventure, with Iowa being one of the original births to 21 mandate states, early access alone has opened my eyes to a world of adventure that I could never have imagined. Where can you approach a home and be greeted by a 400-pound watch pig who comes when called by name? Or where can you look into a kitchen and see a goat tied to a kitchen sink, eating garbage out of a plastic tub, all while being wrapped in Pampers? then there's Goose Haven, an abandoned Boy Scout camp along the Missouri River just south of Missouri Valley. If Appalachia had an Appalachia, it would be Goose Haven. Cabins with 3 sides. You walk over 2 by 10 by 10 foot planks to get into some of the homes. The late Gay Searcy was the early childhood specialist I often paired with on our trips through the low maintenance mud roads leading into Goose Haven. I don't think Gay ever trusted or was much of a fan of my over mileage vehicles, so we would take her newer heat seated Cadillac. When that Cadillac pulled into Goose Haven, the entire community would come out and welcome our arrival. I could be mistaken, but judging from the disappointment on many of their faces, I'm pretty sure the outpouring of interest was not for the early access services we were offering. This is just a small sample because early access stories are just too numerous to share in the time we have. Moving to school-age students, there was a time in Riverton when I was working with a kindergartner with cerebral palsy. I had gone down to see her during morning recess. As the other children played on the various pieces of equipment, she kept staring at the slide, a what seemed like 15-foot tall silver metal slide with a hump in the middle, the kind that you don't see in playgrounds anymore. I asked if she wanted to go down the slide, and of course she said yes. So together we went up the ladder-like steps. At the top, I helped her get positioned, and then I took my place behind her. She giggled with excitement as we prepared to descend. And then, as if she was going down the steepest roller coaster at Worlds of Fun, she screamed. When we reached the bottom, she turned and immediately said, "Let's do it again." I told her I might have to take a rain check. What she didn't realize, but I definitely did, was that as she screamed, the floodgates to Hoover Dam had opened, and like an enormous sponge, I soaked it all up. An hour from home, no shower, no change of clothes. It was definitely one of my more memorable car rides. Being more serious, when I think about the Green Hills AEA, or what the Green Hills AEA has meant to me, it's the people. I think about the time when I was sitting in the audience watching a high school production of The Wizard of Oz. The lead, Dorothy, wheeled across the stage in her manual wheelchair with her red slippers sitting on her lap. That opportunity took a community, and the AEA and all of its vast array of resources working synchronously was part of that community. When I watched a young man with Duchenne muscular dystrophy take the stage in his power wheelchair as a lead in the musical South Pacific, with the stage adapted for his access, it made me proud. I was also well aware of the time that the vocal music teacher had put in to not only have this young man with limited lung capacity produce the beautiful vocal music on stage, but also to make it to all state in vocal music. That too took a community, and the AEA and all of its resources were again part of that community. A summer ago, I stayed up to the wee hours of the night to watch the live broadcast of a Council Bluffs native participating in his 4th Paralympics. He and his teammates brought home his 2nd gold medal to go along with an earlier silver medal for the U.S. men's basketball team. His ability to play Olympic and professional wheelchair basketball at an international level not only took dedication, sacrifice, hard work on his part, but it also took a supportive community. And again, the AEA was part of that community. They say that early mobility is often late mobility for a child with a disability because it doesn't coincide with typically developing mobility. Working collaboratively with Omaha's Children's Hospital, we convinced them to fit the youngest person they have ever fitted for power mobility. To watch a young boy at 15 months old exploring the Henry Dorley Zoo, independently navigating with supervision the places he wanted to go, was amazing. Thanks to the success of that experiment and supporting research, those opportunities are no longer the exception. That change, like most changes, took a community, and again, the AEA was an active part of that community. Obviously, not all of our stories are always positive, and there are some things that even we have to admit that we don't have the power yet to change. Things like genetic conditions. Genetic conditions like spinal spinal muscular atrophy, a debilitating condition that used to have a life expectancy of less than 2 years. Medical advances have increased that time, but with risks. We worked with such a child and her family. Through early access, we provided them with support and resources. That little girl provided us with smiles and giggles. We got the family connected to Go Baby Go, and that little girl got her own battery-powered, switch-operated Lightning McQueen car that she could independently drive down her driveway and across her lawn. Her mom shared that the first time she ever saw her little girl throw a 2-year-old-like tantrum was when they wanted to take her out of her car. Unfortunately, that little girl passed away a few months later, just shy of her 3rd birthday. I was invited to the funeral home for a special viewing with just the family and myself. And that little girl was buried holding my Green Hills AEA name tag, a name tag she used to enjoy pulling out and snapping back at me just to see my exaggerated reactions. These are just a small sample of the stories that are happening every day within our geographic boundaries. We should never forget that we are the Green Hills Area Education Agency. In whatever capacity we serve, we do make a difference in the lives of those we do serve. And they too make a difference in our lives. As for each of you, you should be proud of the work you do, the opportunities you're providing every single day to each and every one of those you serve. Thank you, and I hope you all have a great year.